I said earlier, we think we know what's best, but he actually does know what's best. And because he knows us intimately, he knows the ins and outs of every situation in our lives, and he's trustworthy. What an amazing, trustworthy God we serve. He is worthy of our trust. So it's not like people who have disappointed us over and over again. Somebody you trusted and they've let you down. He's never going to let you down. He is worthy of trust. So when you look up the word trustworthy in the dictionary, God would be a good definition of what is trustworthy. So if you have a Bible, you can turn to Luke 18. I was going to just share about the parable of the persistent widow. If you don't have one, I'll read. You can trust that I'm going to not read you a strange version of the Bible. So I'm just going to read the first 8 verses. It says, one day Jesus told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and never give up. There was a judge in a certain city, he said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly, saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, "I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she's wearing me out with her constant requests." Then the Lord said, "Learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Even he rendered a just decision in the end. So don't you think God will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will grant justice to them quickly. But when the Son of Man returns, how many will he find on the earth who have faith?" On the Amplified, it said a couple of things. It says that they ought always to pray and not to turn coward, to faint, to lose heart, to give up. And then at the end it says, "And will not our just God defend and protect and avenge his elect, his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he defer them and delay help on their behalf? I tell you, he will defend and protect and avenge them speedily." Now his idea of speedily and our idea of speedily might not be the same thing, but speedily it says, "And however, when the Son of Man comes, will he find persistence in faith on the earth?" So, like that widow, I think probably many of us have prayed and believe we heard from God about a situation. And if I heard God say, "Go see XYZ judge, about your situation," I could do that. I would go to that judge that God directed me to and ask for mercy in my case or whatever. If he said no, I would probably, I don't know, I might go back again. I don't know. I might be saying, "Oh, maybe I didn't hear from God on that. Maybe that wasn't God I heard this said." So, but I doubt that I would just repeatedly go back and back and back like this lady did, and she was determined. She knew who her God was, and she knew the nature of, it says he was a just God. Our just God will defend and protect us, which that is one of the attributes that we were talking about his nature before. He is just. That's all he's going to ever be, is just. He can't veer from that either. So he's going to give us justice. And so she knew that about him. And so there's a connection here between her persistence, the fact that she was willing to go back and back, and her faith, because her faith was in the nature of God again. So if your faith is in something unwavering like that, if your faith is in something that changes from day to day to day, good luck with that, But when your faith is in the nature of God, you're not ever going to be disappointed, because he is what he is. He's just. He's loving. He's good. He is what he is, and he's not going to stray from that at all. So I'm going to repeat myself on that probably a few more times. So if you think I'm being repetitive, it's intentional. So she had a connection between that persistence and her faith. And it was because, like I said, of her faith in the just nature of God that she knew her persistence would pay off. And God is faithful always to do his part, but we don't always live up to our end of the bargain. So that's why I'm trying to just shift our focus just a little bit to get it from just asking and asking for the sake of asking, but to ask based on where your faith is in, to change it to that being the nature of who God is, that he cannot change. And so if we, like I said, if we base it on that, we're going to have a lot more faith to stand on when things get hard. So when he looks at the end of that, it says, when he comes to the earth, will he find faith? So when he looks at the ladies of First Church on the Rock, will he find faith? Will he find faith when he looks at each one of you, when he comes to visit your situation, if he comes in here on a Sunday morning and looks around from pew to pew to pew, well, that person's believing me for that situation. They're joyful, they're praising the Lord, they're not even worried about it. Well, she looks pretty wore out, it's wearing her down, I can tell, all of those circumstances in her life, and I just go around from person to person, not in a condemnation kind of a way, but just a meter of where your faith is, where your, trust in God is at, will be determined by your countenance. People can see you looking at you. You can tell, where you're at with the battle. I know that I look at myself in the mirror and I say, you don't look very victorious today, so you look pretty bummed, and like, may not be thinking consciously at that point you're not trusting God, but it does boil down to that, because it's pretty simple. I think just about anything could be boiled down to trusting in the nature of God, and if he's really going to do what he said he's going to do in your situation. It's easy for you to believe it for somebody else, I know, so that, yep, God's going to heal that person, but probably not me, I don't know, he might, I haven't been really good, I probably blew it a few times, so it's not based on you, it's based on him, it's based on his nature. So the part you have to play is to believe it, to believe who he says he is. So we take on too much responsibility that's not ours. We do have a part to play, and we need to take that seriously, but we don't take on more than he intended for us to. It says his yoke is easy, his burden is light. I said that to a couple of you guys who came up here for prayer. I say it a lot, because we take on heavy burdens on ourselves. God may give us a burden to bear, a prayer burden or something like that, but it's not heavy on it. It's heavy in the sense that a heavy urgency to pray or a heavy, desire to see God move in that situation, but it's not heavy as in it weighs us down to where we can't do anything or function. It's heavy in the sense that just an urgency for us to pray until something happens. But God really doesn't call us to carry heavy loads around. He is the one who wants to be the burden bearer for us. So we just need on a regular basis to yield it over to him, and so we catch ourselves when we see that we are bearing more than is our burden to bear. We just need to say, okay, Lord, you said your yoke is easy, your burden is light. Here, take it back. I don't want it anymore. I can't handle all of this. So we just need to make a habit of doing that. This is just a story, one of those 1,000 email stories that come through that I usually don't read, and the forwards that everybody passes on to you and your email box is full of. I just happened to read one of these the other day, and I said, it's just about childlike faith, and so I said, I'm going to throw it in here. This is a story written by a doctor who worked in Africa. Maybe you guys have seen it in your own email. One night I had worked hard to help a mother in the labor ward, but in spite of all we could do, she died, leaving us with a tiny premature baby and crying 2-year-old daughter. We would have difficulty keeping the baby alive as we had no incubator. We had no electricity to run an incubator. We also had no special feeding facilities. Although we lived on the equator, nights were often chilly with treacherous drafts. One student midwife went for the box we had for such babies and the cotton wool that the baby would be wrapped in. Another went to stoke up the fire and fill a hot water bottle. She came back shortly in distress to tell me that in filling the bottle it had burst. Rubber perishes easily in tropical climates. And it's our last hot water bottle, she explained. As in the West, it's no good crying over spilled milk, so in Central Africa it might be considered no good crying over burst water bottles. They do not grow on trees, and there are no drugstores down forest pathways. All right, I said, put the baby as near the fire as you safely can and sleep between the baby and the door to keep it free from drafts. Your job is to keep the baby warm. The following noon, as I did most days, I went to have prayers with any of the orphanage children who chose to gather with me. I gave the youngsters various suggestions of things to pray about and told them about the tiny baby. I explained our problem about keeping the baby warm enough, mentioning the hot water bottle and that the baby could so easily die if it got chills. I also told them of a 2-year-old sister crying because her mother had died. During prayer time, one 10-year-old girl, Ruth, prayed with the usual blunt conciseness of our African children. Please, God, she prays, send us a hot water bottle today. It'll be no good tomorrow, God, as the baby will be dead, so please send it this afternoon. While I gasped inwardly at the audacity of the prayer, she added, and while you're at it, would you please send a dolly for the little girl so she'll know you really love her? As often with children's prayers, I was put on the spot. Could I honestly say amen? I just did not believe that God could do this. Oh yes, I know he can do everything, the Bible says so, but there are limits, aren't there? The only way God could answer this particular prayer would be by sending me a parcel from the homeland. I'd been in Africa for almost 4 years at that time, and I had never, ever received a parcel from home. Anyway, if anyone did send me a parcel, who would put in a hot water bottle? I lived on the equator. Halfway through the afternoon, while I was teaching in the nurses' training school, a message was sent that there was a car at my front door. By the time I reached home, the car had gone, but there was on the veranda was a large 22-pound parcel. I felt tears pricking my eyes. I could not open the parcel alone, so I was sent for the orphanage children. Together we pulled off the string, carefully undoing each knot. We folded the paper, taking care not to tear it unduly. Excitement was mounting. Some 30 or 40 pairs of eyes were focused on the large cardboard box. From the top, I lifted out brightly colored knitted jerseys. Eyes sparkled as I gave them out. Then there were the knitted bandages for the leprosy patients, and the children looked a little bored. Then came a box of mixed raisins and sultanas. That would make a batch of buns for the weekend. Then, as I put my hand again, I felt could it really be? I grasped it and pulled it out. Yes, a brand new rubber hot water bottle. I cried. I had not asked God to send it. I had not truly believed that he would, or that he could. Ruth was in the front row of the children. She rushed forward, crying out, "If God sent the bottle, he must have sent the dolly, too." Rummaging down to the bottom of the box, she pulled out the small, beautifully dressed dolly. Her eyes shone. She had never doubted. Looking up at me, she asked, "Can I go over with you and give this dolly to that little girl so she'll know that Jesus really loves her?" "Of course," I replied. That parcel had been on the way for 5 whole months, packed up by my former Sunday school class, whose leader had heard and obeyed God's prompting to send a hot water bottle even to the equator. And one of the girls had put in a dolly for an African child 5 months before, in answer to the believing prayer of a 10-year-old to bring it that afternoon. Before they call, I will answer. Isaiah 65:24. So that's the kind of God. I mean, who knows if some of these stories are true, but it very well could be a true story, and it is certainly indicative of the nature of God. And he knew 5 months ahead of time that that was what was going to be needed that day, and that some child would have faith to believe him for it and speak that out. And so, you don't know what your prayers, like I said, your words have power, and you never know what just speaking into a situation can do to turn that situation around. And so, this was just a small example of that. But so I just thought I'd share that with you. So back to faith. We are saved by faith, but faith was never intended only to be used to get our foot in the door of the family of God. So it wasn't just like you have faith to be saved and then that's it. So it's more about, it's the nature of this new family you're in. The nature is faith. Just it's how you live now.